morning. It is Chels from Blueberry Funded, and I'm going to be doing another market breakdown for this week and the outlook on a few pairs that I'm looking at for this week, guys. So the first thing, again, that I like to take a look at is I like to take a look at any economic news events that will be happening this week with my economic calendar. So today obviously is a bank holiday. I don't trade New York. I trade mainly Asian sessions. So I'm not really looking at that right now other than Monday. Going into Tuesday, there is going to be red folder high impact news. Powell does speak. Going into Wednesday looks good to trade. Thursday, there is high impact news. There is PPI that's going to be released on Thursday. And it looks like Friday is in the clear as well. So we have a pretty good trading week as far as not too many red folder news events. And also, guys, just to keep in mind, due to the US government shutdown, any scheduled economic data, for example, jobs, inflation, and things like that, they may not be available as soon as possible, and that might actually be delayed. So just keep that in mind. A lot of the reports aren't going to be published on time, more than likely. Anyway, so let's get into the charts here, guys. I'm actually going to start off with GBPUSD. So our market breakdowns from the last couple of weeks here, right? I'm going to start on the weekly here. Price never came back up into 1.36 thousand area, but I do still have these levels marked, right? I'm actually going to erase this rectangle here. I'm going to mark this as my current high, right, on the weekly. I only want to be paying attention to current price, so I'm not really paying too much attention to this and what had already happened in the past. I more so want to pay attention to what we're looking at currently. I did mark on the weekly a couple of weeks ago in my last market breakdown that we do have these equal lows sitting here around 1.31 thousand to 1.34 500, right? So I am still looking at these lows potentially get rated. Now, we did not get that retest to the upside that more than likely I would have liked to see a retest back into 1.35 thousands before we continue lower. But it did seem on the lower time frame that GU kind of respected this high here at 1.35 thousand. Actually surprised that it did respect this high. However, it is creating trendline liquidity to the upside. So I do believe that at some point we will, continue to rate highs here, potentially tap into a POI above that and continue lower. But as of right now, we are still trending lower here. We did just take out these equal lows. So I'm looking at this as if we can break this swing high here at around 1.33800, I do see some potential to the upside. But as of right now, we're kind of just hanging around in this area at 1.32500. So we're going to kind of see how GU stays in this area going into the new trading day. It did have a pretty good reaction at this area. So I am going to be looking at this. Let's see on the lower time frame what happened. Yeah. We just had a nice rate on liquidity here. So we did, again, take out these equal lows. It looks like we tapped into something lower here, potentially this POI area, right? Price didn't fully come into that, but we do have this W pattern that did end up breaking this internal high here on the lower time frame. So again, it's looking pretty promising to the upside right now. It more than likely just needed to sweep these equal lows before continuing up. But obviously just kind of watching, don't really have any set positions on GU right now, unless it does end up breaking this high here, which again, looks pretty promising just because we have this trend line liquidity that's been forming here to the upside, right? No highs has really been taken out. So far, all the highs have been protected. And so to me, that's just a move down the line to eventually take these highs out. So moving on to US 30 here, as you guys know, US 30 did have that big dump at the end of last week. So I'm not really paying too much attention to this, right? We just have that rate on liquidity for US 30. So going to the weekly here, let's see what happened. I actually do see that there's potential to drop a bit lower on the weekly when it comes to US 30 before we start pushing back to all-time highs again. Right, so we could just be retesting the highs here at 46,400 and continue lower, just because I am seeing that on the line chart here. Again, I do use a line chart for a lot of my confluences and confirmation in terms of what has already closed in price, right? So there's a lot of manipulation in the candlesticks and the wicks. And so I use the line chart a lot to kind of go back and forth to give me more of that conviction onto whether the price has been filled or not. But again, kind of looking for retest again in this area. I'm still seeing lower on US 30 if we can get there. Again, we are pushing up pretty decent. So if we can continue to test the highs here at 46,400 and we get that nice reaction, I would still see and continue to see US 30 dropping lower, at least until, I would say, up until this area here, potentially testing into 44,400 to 44,200, right? So I still see a drop coming into here because this was the last low here that had swept liquidity before we started breaking structure here, right? So I'm looking at this low, and you can also call this almost like a demand zone area as well if you want to look at it super vague. Just this entire zone alone here is a pretty strong zone, right? Because price has retested this area multiple times, right? So as we're rating liquidity, we could potentially drop lower, right, in the following weeks. So we'll see how this plays out for sure. But again, not really looking for any positions on US 30 right now and seeing how it looks during the open of Asian. Going into gold, gold has been doing the opposite, of course. It's been doing nothing but breaking all-time highs here. And so gold, not really much price action that I personally like. Did end up continuing to break all-time highs during market open yesterday. So again, not too much price action here. I will say when there is all-time highs and we are rounding on gold, typically gold won't have any large retracement. And so I always want to keep that in mind to just continue to go with the trend, but also gold will more than likely play and pull back into areas where we have that break and retest, right? These are the most recent areas that gold will more than likely be pulling back into. So I could see gold potentially, if we do start seeing that internal structure in the lower time frame get broken, we could see potential shorts up until 40.60 or 40.50, right? Pushing back up into this area right here to continue to push all-time highs and break above. So that's what I'm looking at. Gold is still very much bullish. I do see eventually probably happening for a news event that we will potentially get a flesh out or raid on these lows, because we've been so bullish for a long time that I would say eventually we do need to balance out orders here, but we'll definitely see. I do think that would take place with some sort of news event. But as of right now, nothing really clear on gold as far as positions just yet. Just sitting on my hands and waiting until there's a little bit more price action. So that's pretty much it, guys. Just be careful. Obviously, it is the start of the new week. And so for me, I like to just wait to see if the market settles. Obviously, there was no positions for me to take at market open yesterday, with also being that it is a bank holiday today. So I'm not really looking for any open positions, but I will be taking a look at everything once market opens back up for Asian and kind of go from there. Again, really interested in Powell's speech, so might even wait until that news event happens on tomorrow, right? Seeing how that plays out. Not sure if I'm interested in taking any positions today. Other than that, I will catch you guys next week. If you are trading this week, please be cautious. There is a lot of good days to trade this week, right? But just be cautious when it comes to red folder news. And I will catch you guys next week with my weekly market breakdowns.